Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be back on the podcast with Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I had a really nice break. I took a couple weeks off and now I'm back, and I'm just so excited for the topics that we have coming up this April. And, starting off our month, I thought, like always, it would be good to just do a monthly check-in. And so during this time that I had as a break, I had some really nice time with family. We also ended up getting the stomach bug. There was, a lot of things going on. But within all of that, the moments that we had really made me find so much gratitude for each individual moment, each individual day. And so when I was starting to think about a topic for our April check-in, I really had a hard time thinking about holidays or ways to do special things in our classes this time of month, because truly this time of month or this time of the season, it is just so busy. And I feel like we're literally just flying from class to class or event to event. And so the thought of making an episode about holidays or special things, it just really fell off to me because that is not the current reality. The current reality that we are facing is we are busy with competition events. If we have a competition program at our schools, we are preparing for our end of the year recitals. We are preparing for end of the year in general and preparing for summer programs. And so there's just so much going on, not only like dance wise, but also like administrative wise. And it's a busy time. And so for me, during the busyness, in the tornado, basically, when you're in the tornado, the thing that I find that I need the most is how to focus in and how to be present, because you just constantly see like a blur in front of you, or you could just see a blur in front of you as you go through your day to day. So how can we find within that busyness more awareness? And so today's topic for our April check-in is all about awareness. And when I'm speaking on awareness in particular, what I'm talking about is being aware of what is happening in the current moment. And so I think as dance teachers, especially, so many of us are like planners, organizers, like we are really on top of like preparing our classes, preparing the week for the week ahead or whatnot, And so for taking the time to just being aware in the present, it took me a while to really be able to do that, because I kind of felt like, nope, these are my plans, or nope, this is how it's going to be. I had taken the time prior to class to figuring this out. And so I wouldn't always find the spontaneous moments in my day-to-day or to take in what is really going on. And so as I grew in my years of teaching, I feel that I definitely built a better or bigger sense of awareness. And so when I'm speaking on awareness, I'm talking about what are the needs of your dancers in the actual moment in that actual class setting. So even if you have a syllabus or a list of things that you're wanting to get done skills-wise, looking at the dancers and seeing, is this really the most effective use of this class time? Is there more that I could be doing? Is there more support they're needing? Is there more time and guidance that they're needing? And so I'm not talking about babying our students or coddling them or hand-holding. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm really talking about being there for our dancers in the healthiest way by keeping the whole dancer in mind. So when I think of the whole dancer, I think, what are the physical needs? What are the mental needs? And what are the emotional needs? So when we're looking at the whole dancer, body, mind, soul. And this is a month where I have an event every single weekend, and we have a lot lining up for recital, and there is so much room here for fatigue, burnout, stress, overwhelm, and more. And so I know going into class each day, I have a very loosely planned and loosely structured class, because I really want to go in there and help the dancers and meet them where they are at. So there's also this fine line, I think, too, about how can we help our dancers to build resilience to learn how to take care of themselves, to know the effects of hard work, but also to learn how to listen to our bodies and needs. Because as I was saying, like if we're going through our regular week of classes and then we have a weekend of competition and then it starts all over again, and we're doing that for almost a month straight, that is a lot on a body, mind, and soul. And so yes, building resilience, as I mentioned, is important, but I think it's really also important to have us teach our dancers how to listen to our bodies and how to take care of our needs. And I truly wish someone taught me strategies like this when I was a kid, because I powered through a lot. I definitely did. I was of a very hard work mindset mentality, and I received injuries. I felt burnout. I felt exhaustion. And I remember I would try to fit sleep in wherever I could. And I didn't realize looking back now, or I didn't realize at the time, but I do now looking back, why I didn't see this as a concern or why this wasn't a red flag to me. But like I could literally sleep anywhere. Like if I was sitting down somewhere and I was like, oh, I have 5 minutes. Okay, like close my eyes for 5 minutes. I could like, be at a friend's house and just be sitting on their couch and fall asleep. Like something was going on there. I was just so tired because I had the time dedicated to my school, to my schoolwork, to my dance, all of that. And so in between, I wasn't meeting my body's basic needs. And I was literally just grasping for sleep wherever and whenever I could. And, I'm not complaining about it in any way because I love dance. I loved it then. I love it now. And the passion of it always fueled my fire. I never felt anger or resentment toward the facts that I was tired, but because I had that passion that definitely kept fueling me. But this is not also true for all dancers. Sometimes we have our really hardworking dancers that are pushing through school, pushing through dance, and it's actually a massive struggle. So like they may have a certain degree of passion, but it's more so a struggle for them. And so this is something that I am also really aware of. Like I said, this time of year, we're also leading up to school letting out. Dance is letting out. The kids are literally itching to have a break. They want to have time off. Up here in New England, when the spring weather hits, it's like everybody just wants to be outside. They like feel like it's summer, even though it's spring. Like it's just this feeling of wanting to have some time off, wanting to have a break. And so knowing that, how can we effectively strategize our classes to help them to be the best they can be, but also to know that if their body is not needing that at this time, what are other things that we can do to help? And so I know I mentioned that I wish I had some strategies as a kid to work through these. And I think there's ways that we can do this for multiple age groups within our dance studio settings. And whether you have a competition team or not, and this is just you're preparing for the end of year, I think we do notice at this time of year just different things going on with our students, whether it's spring fever or whatever it is. There is a change and a shift when April comes around because we know the end of the year is coming. We also have kids that are cramming for finals. We have kids that are making decisions for colleges. There's a lot of big pressure things happening on this time of year, and so we can easily check out. And so as teachers, it's so important for us to help them find the strategies to be able to recheck in. So I'm going to give you some strategies that I have thought up for elementary age level and for middle school, high school. So here we go. All right, so elementary. Some things that we may notice that we may want to have as red flags in our burnout, fatigue type of catalog in our brains is dancers not paying attention, dancers dazing off, dancers not really present. And so with those, qualities, dancers coming in really upset, dancers having a hard time even getting into the door. That's another one too. So looking at this, if we're seeing these behaviors, these can be flags to us that we are not truly present in this class experience, and maybe there are bigger things going on outside of this. So for us, it's important. How can we do something that takes them back to the heart of the dancing? How can we help them to re-spark their love of why they signed up for dance in the first place in September or August or whenever they signed up? And so some things that have helped me is just, throwing the class plans away and doing an improv class geared to their age group. Something that is exploratory for them to try new things and new ideas and for them to feel more individualized within their class experience. Dance games are fun as well, and there's so many out there. Even taking some time to just review some dance history, depending on what class or style you teach. Maybe you can say, today we're going to just do a deep dive into this part of our subject's dance history. We're going to watch some short clips and videos here. We're going to work on some movement, maybe try even some variations or works of a particular choreographer, and just kind of have fun with that and explore. It's a whole new subject and a new way for dancers to find a deeper understanding of the style that they are learning about. Even learning something new, sparking something new. Maybe we're taking time to say, dancers, this year, we were really preparing you for this skill that you're going to learn in next year's level. And so let's take a look at really trying to work these building blocks towards that, because next year you guys are all going to be doing such and such a skill or whatnot. So you're preparing them, you're exciting them for what's to come, and also helping them to see the bridge of the way there. So like, how are they going to get to that point? Sometimes just taking a special day and like making it all about an artist they love. Like, say the class loves Taylor Swift, play all Taylor Swift music or whatnot, and just having fun with that. Even doing a completely different class, changing up how you do things. Like maybe you're going to do across the floor conditioning for warm up instead of center. Maybe you're going to do a special cool down stretch and maybe a closing yoga sequence, something that the dancers are not used to week. That can be just a really fun way for them to kind of be back into their bodies and find a different love of movement than maybe the burnout they may have experienced when entering the classroom. So just changing it up. And even though I said these ideas for elementary, I feel like they could also apply to middle school and high school. Now, going into strategies specific to middle school and high school students, I think we, again, looking for certain red flags of where they're at. We can see exhaustion. We can see them easily fatiguing. You may see an increase in injuries, things like that. And so for me, what's really important is when I see this happening, when I see this start, is let's move slower. Let's really think about what we are doing, because it's really easy when we are in a time of fatigue to kind of like go into muscle memory. But like if our body isn't strong enough or like feeling well enough to support us in that can set off an injury. I mean, I know it's happened to me, so I can totally understand and relate to that. I think it's important to help teach our dancers, middle school and high school, to prepare them for the future too, about the get up and go versus the listen in and let's work through this, the working through this. And understanding too, like, where is it appropriate to like push and where it's not appropriate to push. I do feel there is a really fine line between pushing and motivating as teachers. And, I think back to teachers, not necessarily like dance experiences for me, but maybe more so academic experiences where I was pushed, and instead of it motivating me, it was a complete deterrent for me. And I ended up losing a lot of interest in some of the subject matters or things that, these instances happened, because instead of it sparking me or feeling like, yeah, I can do this, or yeah, I do know this, I just shut down. And so there are dancers where that will happen with them too. And so knowing how we are motivating, it's different. Pushing and motivating are two completely different things. And we really have to know that line. And same thing for our dancers. We have to be able to explain to them how they need to recognize the symptoms of pushing and pushing and pushing versus taking the time to listen to our body. Because like, as I mentioned in my high school experience where I was like falling asleep wherever I went, it was a lot because I wasn't really taking care of my basic needs and rest and taking care. And there was this post recently, let me see, Sugarfoot Therapy. I absolutely love their Instagram account. I love everything they do, their YouTube channel, everything. So if you haven't heard of Sugarfoot Therapy, I mean, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, I highly recommend following. But they put out a post on Instagram on March 18th. And so the reason why I'm giving you the specific date is because I want everyone to go and look at this post, because it was a post about gearing towards like a post-convention weekend, like the Monday back from dance class. Like, you just were at a convention all weekend. What do we do on that Monday? And I feel so strongly that this post also applies to competition weekends. And so what the post talked about really briefly in summary is dancers are likely surpassing the sports pediatrics recommended hours per week of physical training when they're going to competition and convention weekends. The way you determine what the sports pediatrics recommend 4 hours a week of physical training is the number of years in age they are, is the number of hours per week of training. So like if your dancer is 13 years old, they should be training 13 hours a week to be within that safe boundary, for their bodies, mental health, everything. And so if you have a competition day, let's just look at Sunday, okay? 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Say it's that. And I know a lot of these competitions go a lot longer. So 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., that is 13 hours. So for that 13-year-old, even though they might not have been dancing all of those 13 hours, think about how hard they go for every number that they have. And even with breaks in between, like how much they're pushing their bodies within those instances. And yeah, at convention, you could easily have like a 6-hour class day. And then times 2, that's 12 hours. So with that, we really need to look at that because that's just one weekend. Now we have the whole week ahead of our training. And so, for if you had like a 16-year-old dancer, they tend to, if they have a lot of pieces in your competition season and they danced that whole day Sunday, they now only technically have 3 more hours in their allotted safety zone, according to the recommendation. So to me, this was incredibly eye-opening. And I just really wanted to share it because I feel that it's so important that, we see these dancers, they're doing incredible things. They are doing amazing things that are like truly, sometimes we don't even realize as humanly possible. And yet then they come right in on Monday and we're just expecting them to like go right through their class schedule that they have on Monday or, through the week or whatnot. So it really opened my eyes. But if you check out that post, they gave amazing ideas about like what you could do on that Monday so that when you're coming back in, you're not just giving your regular Monday class. We're doing something different for them. So definitely check that post out. Sugarfoot Therapy, March 18th on Instagram. So, as I was mentioning, there's such a fine line between pushing and motivating, especially with these dancers. And I think it's important to be able to teach them how to work hard and how to feel that like gratification of, wow, I just did that. Like, wow, like look at what I'm capable of. But also to help them to tap into listening to the body, because if they're pushing and pushing and pushing and we're feeling pain or we're feeling complete exhaustion or even weakness, say we're starting to feel like weakness in the body or like that feeling when you've worked so hard that your like muscles feel like jello, to be aware of these instances because we want to maintain the longevity of what we're doing. And so if we push through that and then all of a sudden we're injured, it's like we're injured. Now we have to deal with that. So really listening in and to always be that positive force for our dancers that like, you can do this. I believe in you, but that we're also keeping an eye on them because there have been times where I've had to stop a student and say, hey, I think you need to take a little break. Why don't you sit down for a second, grab some water or go over. Are you feeling okay? Like you can literally sometimes when you look in your dancer's eyes, just see something is not right. And this is where I said that awareness comes in, is looking at what is truly in front of you. Because you could have your class plans and look out and you see your 12 dancers in your class. And you could be just starting the class, teaching the class and going about and just seeing the bodies. But if you're not looking into them, you're not really seeing what they're feeling, we could be missing a huge part of their learning. And we could be missing a huge important part of the safety within our classrooms. And so we have the power as dance teachers to uplift and help our dancers on the day-to-day. The hard work they have put in, I feel should always be acknowledged. And I truly feel this statement so much, okay? When you honor the needs of your dancers, they will honor the class experience more because you aren't necessarily giving them what they want, but you are helping to facilitate a class structure that directly relates to their current needs. And that is just something to me that I have really been trying to work by the past, I would say 7 or 8 years of my teaching, because it's when I realized that huge shift for myself in my teaching. And I've noticed a big change when I honor the dancer's needs. And you know what else I noticed too about it is there is so much more trust. There is so much more trust. There's so much more respect. There's so much more collaboration of energy. And I think that's just really important, because that support and that trust is where the growth happens too, because they feel so believed in, and then they also believe in themselves even more too. Like they know they can feel trusting and listening to their body. They can trust in how to push themselves more. And so I think that is just such an important part. And so this time of year too, as another strategy, is just teaching spontaneously. Come in with loose plans. By this point in the year, you have created your syllabus, or you've been given your syllabus. You have worked through it. You probably have some different warm-ups that you like to work through. You have the skills you've been working on. Just come in. And you know what? You may surprise yourself. You may really create new ideas you never thought possible. Because sometimes when I'm spontaneous teaching, things will literally come into my mind as the class is going, and I'll be like, whoa, we got to try this. And it ends up being an amazing teaching moment, or an amazing movement exploration for the class. And so a loose set of plans, especially for those of us like myself who are planners or organizers, to just make, you feel like you have that safety net of, okay, what am I going to do? But just going by what's going on, and, checking in with your dancers too. In our episode with Jill Kreisel about responsive classroom methods, something that it was a huge takeaway for me was the concept of morning meeting. Like, even though we don't have the time to sit for 15-30 minutes with our classes to do a morning meeting, just do a quick 5-minute check-in. See how the dancers are. See them. Like I said, don't see the bodies. See them. Look and see how they are feeling, how they are reacting to coming into the space. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. How are you guys doing? You can easily hear the murmurs in the grounds, or, hey, good, you're doing good today, whatever it is. And you can start to play off of that energy, because what they are bringing in is what's going to help carry them through the class. And then you can see how much to push and how much to not push. And I think overall, you'll be really inspired by what is happening right in front of you, by just finding more awareness in what is happening within your class setting. So if you have ideas about how to help strategize students with burnout, or working through these difficult, like I said, tornado busy seasons of times, I would love to hear them over on our Instagram at Dance Teacher Pep Talk. And I would love to share them with everybody that is listening to these episodes, because I think it's so important for us to always broaden our ideas and to broaden our thoughts, not even when it comes to skill-based learning, but just when it even comes to the foundational learning of being a human, and just human life. So I just want to thank you all so much for listening to today's episode of the podcast. If you feel called to share it with a friend or colleague, I would so appreciate that. And of course, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform so that you get notifications when new episodes are available. I hope to be posting again soon on our Instagram with my weekly class tips. But again, I just want to thank you all so much for your listens and support. And I hope you have a wonderful April ahead.